Hello everyone, myself Uday Datrak. I'm planning to teach 100 plus unique web application security issues in just 20 hours. You don't need to have any basic skills, guys. With this course, you will be eligible for cybersecurity jobs. Search in YouTube for Uday Datrak and you can see my playlist here. I have already uploaded 50 lessons. I will be uploading daily 1 or 2 videos, guys. So today we will talk about cross-site scripting, guys. So now let's see the definition of cross-site scripting. Cross-site scripting are the type of injection in which malicious scripts are injected into. It's a complex definition to understand. Let's try to see some easy definition. This is important, guys. You shouldn't learn the complex definition because you should not waste time on remembering the definitions. Cross-site scripting is a type of web application security vulnerability typically found in web applications. Yes, XSS attacks enable attackers to inject client-side scripts into web applications. This is good. So yeah. Now, if you have seen my previous lesson cross-site request forgery, what we have done is we have sent a link to the victim, and if the victim clicks on the link, the request will be sent to the server, right? Similarly, what happens now, we will try to send a link to the victim. If the victim clicks on that link, the JavaScript will be executed and we can steal the cookie of the victim. Cookie contains the session ID. Using that session ID, attacker can log in into the website without using any username password. That you guys know that you guys are good at session IDs, right? Now there are how many types of cross-site scriptings are there? Like some people say as reflected cross-site scripting, in short they say it as XSS. The second one is Toad cross-site scripting, and DOM based XSS. Third one. Fourth one is cross refer scripting, people say it as referrer cross-site scripting, so I'm just putting it as don't worry, these are all very easy things to understand. We'll only focus on reflected cross-site scripting. Okay, reflected cross-site scripting is also called as non-persistent cross-site scripting. Stored cross-site scripting also called as persistent cross-site scripting. Okay, now just forget all these things now. Yes, we'll only talk about reflected cross-site scripting. The reflected cross-site scripting means, now let's say we'll try to take one web application on our machine. We have some extremely vulnerable web application. Yes, no connection could be made to that because action is refused. Maybe recently we changed the database username password, right? Okay, that's fine. Now if that is the case, I don't want to make any changes, guys. So for your experience, let's try to develop a website. Yeah, before going further, we will discuss about the reflected cross-site scripting. Sorry, the reflected cross-site scripting. Let's say there is a search page. When we search for something in the search page, right? If I search for Uday, Uday is reflecting here on the website, right? The same keyword. So the attacker will try to put some JavaScript. If the JavaScript is reflected back in the response, the since this is a HTML page, the JavaScript will be executed actually. So the attacker can give any JavaScript, like he makes the victim to redirect to phishing site, or else he can with the help of JavaScript he can directly steal the session IDs from the cookies and can log in as a victim. Now let's try to if you see some Facebook applications or some other websites, search engines, right, whatever we search, it will not be stored in the server actually, so it will be reflected back. That's why we are calling it as reflected cross-site scripting. Let's say the web application has sign up page. Every website will have around these common pages like sign up page, sign in page, profile change page, for example like a comments page. Now like, yeah, let's say registration page, sign up page, which is asking for your username, password, email address. It will be stored in the database, right? So if you are entering the script, then on the registration page it will be stored in the database. So in such situation we call it as stored cross-site scripting. Similarly, the profile edit page, if you change your name, it will always, whenever you log in, it will show the new name which you have changed it, right? That's why we call it as stored cross-site scripting. But on the search page, like example on the Google, when you search, it will not be stored in the server. So that's called reflected cross-site scripting. Now let's develop some basic web application like basic HTML form W3 schools. Yeah, this should be fine. We'll try to modify this piece of code. When you try to change the piece of code, you will be good at your skills, guys. Now I'll try to create one folder for the practice purpose. I'm trying to create a search page. As you can see here, form, it is showing us some action underscore page. So we need to create this particular page. Now how many input fields we have here? Input type is equal to test1, input type is equal to text2. If I open it in the like a note in the browser, how does it looks? Okay, now I'll try to remove one input field so that I can show you an example of basic understanding. Okay, now I'll remove this, Control S, save. Now refresh this page. Yeah, we have one input field. Let's say without changing this label names, we'll try to consider this as something like search page. Okay, now in this it is showing some particular file name, right? We have to create, or else we can change this name also, search.php, search Uday something, because I don't want you to get confused with the search word with the search file itself. Okay, now nice, we have created this file. Now we are good with the front end code of the like search page. Now back end code we'll try to create it. PHP get request example. It is showing very W3 schools. Did they write any of the code? I want you to follow the similar approach, guys. That's the reason why. Okay, now what he is doing is, I'll try to copy this piece of code in this particular file. What is the keyword we searched here in the W3 schools? PHP get request example W3 schools. Okay, now if you see this particular search dot HTML file, the request type is form. By default he did not give any method get request, right? I'll try to put as method equal to get. Okay, now I just added by default method equal to get here. So now whatever the input we have entered, that is stored in the variable fname, and that is sent to this particular file search.php. Now if you go to this particular file, or else I'll try to simply I'm doing it for after a long time. What was the variable name? Fname here. Now simple, guys, like I'm telling you once again, like this particular whatever you enter here, the keywords, that is stored in a particular front-end file variable. Input type is equal to test, name is equal to fname, and once you click on the submit button, it will be sent to search.php using get request. So in this particular file, now this we close this. If you open that PHP file, that variable we are reading it using get method and storing in a variable Uday and printing it back on the page. Let's say if I enter as Uday, sorry, I cannot search just like this, right? I need to first go to localhost, then XSS folder, and then John, search uday.php, file not found. What was the file name? Search uday.php. Yes, okay, got it. It is like this. Within the XSS folder we have that file, right? So these are very important things, guys, basic things you need to know, like how to give the directory names, enumeration kind of things. To become hacker, it's not a what search Uday. Again it is showing. Did I save it? Okay, I'll give the path itself directly. With protocol. You don't need to give this protocol, but I just don't want to waste time on understanding the things here now. What? Search name? Local? Why? Oh shit, guys. Okay, I need to refresh the page, like previous page, and now it's no, because after modifying the piece of code, it was showing the older version of the HTML file itself. So that's the reason. Not necessary. Yeah. Control S. Come back. Save page, and now it should work fine. So now, let's say in the search page, when you go to now, we developed a particular page to check for cross-site scripting, guys. So in order to check cross-site scripting, you don't need to have all these skills, but the reason why I told you is if you can understand these two basic concepts, right, you will become extremely good at like all the four different types of cross-site scripting. That's the reason why this session is going to become little lengthier. Okay, now as you know that there is a, let's assume this as a search page itself. Whenever you search for like in a shopping cart, like buy shoes and like some shoe name, if you search for it, it will be reflected back in the response, right? Just like Uday. So if you could see this keyword, the same keyword is reflected back in the HTTP response. Then what I think that if I execute a JavaScript, if the JavaScript is reflected back, then it will be executed. So what hackers will do is most of the time to test, they will try to put a script like pop-up script to check like if if I get a pop-up now, that means the application is vulnerable to cross-site scripting because this particular JavaScript is getting executed. Can you guys see? Yes. Now this means the application is vulnerable to reflected cross-site scripting. So, as you can see the application code now, are we storing the script anywhere in the database? No, right? That's the reason it is a reflected cross-site scripting. But if this particular script is getting stored in the database, then it is a stored cross-site scripting. I'll tell you the difference in the next session, guys. So this is about reflected cross-site scripting. Here you need to know at least 10 different important things, guys, because we always find cross-site scripting in web applications. Now first let's talk about how we gonna prevent this. First one is input validation, guys. As we discussed weak input validation before, search keyword should be, let's say if it's a shopping website, then it should allow only A to Z characters with space, right? And we don't need any other characters like these characters. These are very important. These we call it as a script tags. These are very important for JavaScript. Without this, JavaScript will not be executed. So input validation, if the input validation is done, the application will be protected. The second approach is output encoding. That means even though when you give the scripts, the script will not be executed. The script will be reflected back. For example, if you want to see like our previous code which we have done, like that rep folder, I'll try to copy one function which protects the application from reflected cross-site scripting. Instead of seeing all this big code, I'll try to take the important function which is useful to fix the cross-site scripting. Now what we are doing is, let me see whether the syntax is correct or not. Okay, now it is correct. Sorry, I was okay. Now I'm in two different browser. Browser is not an issue, guys. Can you see? Now the script is not executed. May I know why? Can you guys think for 10 seconds? We didn't change anything. We executed the same script, but the script is not executed. Now if you could right click and view source, the scriptlet tags are converted to HTML entities. Right click, view source. Can you see? These angle brackets are converted to HTML entities, so that the whatever you search, it will be reflected back in the HTML response as it is, but JavaScript will not be executed. So in a PHP there is a function called HTML special chars, which is useful to, which provides out, we call this as output encoding. That means the scriptlet tags converted to another form to make sure that scripts doesn't get executed. The output encoding is only done to protect the applications from cross-site scripting, whether it's a DOM based access, whether it's a reflected XSS or stored XSS or cross-reference scripting, whatever it is, right? To protect from scripting attacks, the output encoding is performed. The best way to mitigate is, what is the best way, whether it's a input validation or output encoding? What happens if we do the both? That's not a big issue, right? You could say as the best way is input validation and also the output encoding. I don't want to tell you this right away itself, why both. I'll tell you in the later session, guys. Now, so this is the best way. Now you understood how to develop a basic example for cross-site scripting, how to fix the reflected cross-site scripting, types of cross-site scripting, and yeah, now you should not always check for these basic script tags, guys. Now let's say how many ways the cross-site scripting can be protected in a weak manner. Yes, weak protection implementation, weak cross-site scripting protection implementation is done. The first one is blacklisting, guys. Some developers, what they will do is they will search for the keyword of this particular script tags. Okay, so now whenever you enter any keyword like /script, right, that will be bypassed, that will be blocked by the server, so that particular script will not be executed. So what hacker will do is he will try to use some lowercase and uppercase characters, still the scripts can be executed. So this is one of the bypass techniques, guys. Let's see now the same similar script. I'm trying to alter S to capital S. Oh, sorry, now we need to change this code, right? We need to go back. It's a good learning. We need to like go back and forth changing the codes. You don't have to write the code, guys. Instead of developing the code, try to edit the other codes, which gives you very strong command in understanding the skills. Sorry, understanding the code. Yeah, now the previous one, can you see the capital S? This is one of the mechanism. Now next approach, the developer becomes a little smart now.